to the Rex Reviews podcast. It's Lou McCoy, Casey Day, TiborasaurusRex, and an all-star cast along with you for a very special episode coming your way from Texas. I just saved our first file from the first one, and this is actually episode 19 of our podcast. Could you believe that...
It's 20.
It's 20.
This is 20?
Yeah, this is 20.
Okay, with the times, 19. Lou.
Yeah, way to go.
Are you sure?
I just uploaded 19 like a week ago.
Really?
Your numbers have been off for episodes and episodes, man.
Well, no wonder the whole thing's fucked. From the top.
Start over.
Oh, I like that part. We'll leave it in there. I'll just we'll put in the artillery round hitting where you said that word. So
no, we play the sound of a steel clinking from 1,000 yards away.
There you go.
That's perfect.
There we go. Perfect.
That's the $1 million idea right there.
I love it.
Well, they pay me nothing.
That was awesome.
Regardless of how many we're in, 1920, who's counting? Could you imagine that like a year and a half ago, we'd actually be sitting somewhere down in Texas? Could you imagine that we'd be here where we are today, man?
I imagined it, but it's weird how stuff happens, huh?
It's crazy,
Well,
dude.
cool.
It's crazy. Life takes
We're having
you,
too much fun, man.
Life takes you in some mysterious ways.
Yeah, it's all right.
Even
We'll just ride that wave.
Even if you can't count how many episodes we're on.
Yeah,
We still like you.
We're gonna ride the wave, Lou.
Yes, sir.
Speaking of riding waves, were you out there, Lou?
No.
You weren't out there during the break?
No, sir.
Charlie was telling a story about some waves and swimming with the fishies.
Oh, man.
Is that like a mob metaphor?
No, this is
Gonna
not
be
a metaphor. This is
swimming with the
literal.
fishes, see?
So it's ridiculous what some of these guys, try for fun sometimes. What happened with this deal? Why were you swimming in the ocean like all night by yourself in the middle of nowhere?
So first of all, just to give some background, me and Charlie were sitting down and I asked him, what's the craziest thing that's ever happened to you? And this is the story he told me. So just imagine 25 years of being in the SEALs. And this is what he comes up with. Charlie, please.
So once I learned how to swim and made it through SEAL training, checked into my first team in Virginia, SEAL Delivery Vehicle Team 2, which, if you guys don't know what that is, it's the little wet subs we go. You're wearing scuba gear, but you're in like a car-sized submarine driving around the ocean. You rendezvous with big submarines. So my first week at the team, I checked in. I hadn't even got my trident yet. So I get nominated as a standby diver for this sub trip they're practicing. So we're about 100 miles, a couple hundred miles off the coast of North Carolina. And of course, it's like a sea state 3 or 4, probably 20-foot swells, storm. Water's probably like 50, 60, 40 degrees. It was cold. So I go out as a standby diver, and as a new guy, you're like, oh, I'm not going to have to get in the water. I mean, nothing's going to happen. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, of course, I go out with a shorty wetsuit and all that. So, of course, we're out there, and these guys are trying to rendezvous with the STV and hook up to the submarine, but they couldn't attach the line to the periscope where it comes by. So they tried that for hours and hours, and the pilot and navigator were getting hypothermia, so... Of course, they launched a standby diver. We go out, and they put me in. They're like, hey, watch the SDV, and they pull the pilot navigator out. Go back to the surface support ship to debrief and figure out what's going on. So this was like right before dark, probably like 5 in the evening. So while they're gone, granted, I'm in 20-foot swells going up and down. So about an hour before the sun goes down, I lose sight of the ship, don't see it. So I'm sitting in this SDV. At this time, it's been an hour or two, so I'm freezing to death.
Nice.
Yeah, so it leaves, it gets dark, and then all of a sudden I'm sitting there and freezing. I'm like, all right, they'll make it back sometime. So about that time, the periscope from a submarine goes by me like 5 feet away, like just hauling butt, like probably like 20 knots. I'm like, oh shit, what is that? About 2 seconds after that thing passes, the SDV starts to sink. So I go underwater with the SDV. As soon as I go underwater, you can hear the big sub screw turning like, wah. I'm like, oh shit. So I do the emergency blow procedure, bolt back to the surface, and then I'm like in the middle of the ocean, like going up on these swells. I'm like, okay, I'll just pop my flare or whatever, my emergency signaling device. I'm like, oh, I don't have a flare. That's awesome. So what I did have was one of those little like 4-inch chem lights, green chem light. So I'll pull that out and I'll start frantically waving like, help, over here. panicking. And then about that time, a bunch of dolphins are swimming around me. They start hitting my feet. Kind of similar story from earlier, but just so I'm like, oh shit, sharks. So I get real still and I just
Sharks.
sit there.
Of course it's sharks, right?
Yeah, of course. So I was probably lost at sea for 7-8 hours. But yeah, about 7-8 hour mark, I'm like, all right, I'm gonna die right here. I'm done. So I'm
So
just
let me get a
floating around.
picture in time here. You're out in the sea, like 300 or 400 miles off the coast
Yep.
of North Carolina
in a sea state
for hours, right? Now I got a few questions about this situation because I never tried that yet. I'm working up to it eventually. So, like, what are you thinking about for 3 or 4 hours as you're going up and down these swells
What?
with your submarine gone and everything else? You know, what are you thinking about, man?
Well, at first I was thinking about getting rescued, and then I'd kind of given up all hope. It had come to my, I was going to die there. But about that time, I hear a Zodiac in the distance, like humming, like, and so I'm like, oh shit. So now I break my chem light out again and start waving frantically. So these guys pull up in the Zodiac, like, hey, what's going on? Where's the Zodiac? Like, nothing had happened. I'm like, dude, I've been out for 8 hours. I'm like, it's gone. They're like, what do you mean it's gone? I'm like, it sank. So, of course, we're in like 3,000 fathoms of water or whatever. So we spent all night driving around the ocean, never found it. Fucking cold and miserable. And then, yeah. So that was my first week at my first SEAL team.
At that point, he used Charlie Mike, continue mission.
Yes, sir.
His first experience.
First one.
Oh, man. So how did they deal with the debriefing on that one? You told them everything that happened.
So I think I was at E2 or E3 at the time, but for like 6 months, I got calls from admirals every day asking me to tell the story again.
What was your nickname there for a while?
Yeah, so when I get back to the team, of course, I got my first nickname ever, and it was Lost Boy. It was painted across my locker, so I was known as Lost Boy for my first couple years in teams.
Wow. You know, it's interesting. We're talking like several podcasts ago about the weird stuff that can happen in life, like extremely traumatic incidents, like being in the ocean, you know, thinking the sharks are going to eat you for 8 hours or whatever. I mean, that's got to unlock a lot of that epigenetic memory. Like the panic mode, it like flips those switches. And the ancients call that the rites of passage, right? To where it turns you into like a different person, right?
Yep.
Were you a different person after that deal happened, Charlie?
Well, you would think so, but being an STV, that was just the beginning. When you spend 12 hours underwater in 40-degree water in a wetsuit, you do a lot of soul searching.
What about you, Rex? What's the most interesting time in the water you've ever had?
In the water?
Yeah.
Oh, I'll tell you what, man. I was about 40 inches off the coast of the Hart River. I was
Did you have a
about
floaty?
4 years old. No, listen to the story, man. This is crazy. So I'm about 4 years old, and we're at Catfish Corner is the place where the catfish live in the river. You can throw a rock across the river, you know what I mean? It's like 25 feet across max. And there I am, and I was walking on the, you know, just kind of like playing around, and my sister was there. And I kept walking, and there's one of these little eddies, you know, where it drills a hole like deep into the river around the corner. And it was like 15 foot deep, and I was walking, and the water got deeper and deeper and deeper. And for at least a good 2.5 seconds, I went under the water because I walked into one of these 20-foot deep holes. And my old man, you know, he's sitting there in the lawn chair smoking cigarettes or whatever, like, oh, go get him. So then my sister dived in and pulled me out.
Wow.
But I'll tell you what, that'll change your life right there, man.
Yeah.
No, I'm just... My story wasn't as fun as yours, but...
Hey, water's an equalizer, especially cold water.
Yeah. No, water's scary, though, man. It's like the ocean is actually scary, isn't it? I remember one time I lived on the West Coast for a little while, sitting there, and I was prying the mussels out of the beach with one of them Bushman cold steel knives so I could eat them, you know? And I was in Northern California, and I'm like not the best swimming guy ever made, maybe kind of like you used to be before you decided to learn it.
I'm still not a swimming guy.
But yeah, and then you turn your back to that thing for 5 seconds, and it decides it's going to try to kill you, you know? And you get a freak wave, hits you and smashes you in the rocks, and pretty soon you get your head above the water, and you're like 300 yards out, getting sucked out, and you're like, what in the, you know? And I'm an inlander, so I'm trying to swim, and then I remember from somewhere swim sideways, you know? And then I got out of it, but I mean, so I'm scared of the ocean. I would never volunteer to do that kind of stuff ever, man. I'm golden.
The ocean's scary, man. It's huge.
There's big fish in there too. You ever see any like really big fish or anything like that?
Yeah, we didn't see a whole lot. I probably got 3,000 or 4,000 hours underwater my first 5 years in teams, but it was all night dives and everything. But it's amazing what you get used to. I mean, yeah, at first when you're doing it, you're like scared shitless, just waiting for something to eat you. But toward the end, yeah, you'll be underwater at night and you feel like a 8-foot fish rub up against you. You're like, oh shit, oh yeah, it was a fish, whatever. Not thinking like, oh, that could have been a shark. But amazingly, team guys never get attacked by sharks or anything. I don't know what it is, but because we spend a lot of time underwater at night.
So UDT, right? That's underwater demolition training, right? So what are you guys demolishing underwater? Like what's going on with that whole situation?
Well, the original SEAL teams spawned from UDTs, which is underwater demolition teams. Back in World War II, they started. And those were the guys that would rub themselves down with Vaseline. That was their wetsuit. And they would dive in before they do a beach landing back in World War II, like Normandy and all that. Those guys would go in first and they would drop them off in boats like a couple hundred yards out. And they would swim in, getting shot at, and put explosives on all the Jap scullies and stuff and blow them up. So that was the original birth of the Frogman. And then in 1962, John F. Kennedy commissioned the first SEAL team. And that's where the SEAL team spawned from. So yeah, that's our forefathers and the original SEAL teams.
Oh my God.
They'd coat themselves in Vaseline for a wetsuit?
Vaseline and axle grease. That's how they kept warm. All they had was shorts, a web belt, and a knife, and a haversack full of explosives. And that's what they swam into the beach with.
Holy crap, man.
Some hard dudes. I've met a bunch of those guys. But yeah, there were some hard warriors.
That's
insane.
crazy. I need to put water wings on when I take a bath.
What's a bath, Lou?
A bath?
What's that?
It's kind of like a shower, except it takes longer.
Oh, I got you.
So like 5,000 hours underwater, Charlie, in the first couple years?
Yeah, because my first team was the SDV team. So yeah, we'd do 3 or 4 dives a week for 5 years straight. Like long dives, a lot of time underwater.
And it was at night, you say?
Yep. All at night. I mean, we did some day dives, but most of it was all night.
So what kind of equipment do you have to be able to see underwater at night then?
You don't see. Well, you're basically, so that little SUV thing is like a car. It's like a big torpedo tube. Mm-hmm. But once you close the canopies, you don't see anything but your instruments. So you have a compass, a depth gauge, and your navigator has like an OAS that can see obstacles in front of you.
Wow. So you put 100% faith in your equipment then?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Definitely 100%.
Wow.
Not that it worked 100%. Every time.
And lots of jackhammering.
Yeah. I have ran into the Chesapeake Bay Bridge at full speed.
I sense a story that we might need to hear here.
Oh, yeah. That's another one.
Okay.
You ever seen any like sea monsters or anything like that? Octopuses or plesiosaurs?
No sea monsters or crazy stuff, but I have seen some really cool stuff underwater. One time we were, I think we were in Puerto Rico. We're getting ready to dock with a submarine. So when you dock with that, they're usually like underwater at least 60 feet. So we're pulling up the dock and they didn't have the garage open yet. So we're hanging out and we're picking up stuff on the OAS. And so we open our canopies and we had like 5 humpback whales that were like twice as big as the SDV just hovering beside us. It was pretty cool.
Wow, that's pretty cool. Yeah, you get to see them up close and in person right there. Did you ever see sharks when you're down there?
You know what? No, I never saw one. I'm sure I got bumped into by a couple.
And you had seen Jaws at this point, right?
Oh, yeah.
So was that exactly what goes in your mind? So how many times per hour did you imagine scenes from the movie Jaws when you're down in the water?
Well, like I said at the beginning, when you're first doing it, you're scared to death. So like a little fucking sunfish will hit you. You're like, shark! Yeah. Toward the end, you're like pushing them out of the way, like, geez, get out of my way.
Steven Spielberg's power, amazing.
And I'm not sure if you can say anything about it, but didn't you do some time training with the dolphins that the Navy uses?
No, I never trained with them, but they used to use them to like their anti-swimmer device or whatever. So when we do our combat swimmer courses in the bay, they would have the dolphins come out and we'd swim against them. So yeah, the dolphins and the seals definitely pinned some guys to the bottom of the ocean floor and had their way with them.
Interesting. So what exactly happened with this dolphin pinning people to the bottom of the water? What happened there?
Yeah, it's kind of still classified, but I can't go into too much detail. But
okay, like Flipper. I'll just imagine that. I got a good imagination. I'll make up a good story.
It's like a dolphin attack dog.
Okay. So not all dolphins are happy and fluffy like the Flipper dolphin, possibly. Yeah, that's okay. That's interesting. I'm sure they have laser beams shooting out of their foreheads too.
Maybe. So, Charlie,
Laser beams.
I heard that there's an interesting story about a grenade.
Yes, I do have a good grenade kill. Yeah, we were in the Ramadi, best deployment ever. But yeah, I do. It's in one of Marcus's books, the service. But yeah, we're doing a sniper Overwatch one night. So basically, on a sniper Overwatch, we would go in and take over a structure or whatever, and like set up a sniper out on the roof and take care of business during the day. So I'd always keep a grenade next to me because one of their SOPs, they would come in and when they figured out where we were, they'd come up and throw a bunch of grenades on the roof and try to frag us. So I always kept a grenade next to my sniper rifle. So we'd do like 3-hour watches or whatever. So I was swapping out with my buddy. I was going down to take a nap. And as I was going down, we had some overhead video up. So I stopped and checked out the overhead video, and I saw these guys coming out of a building, like moving toward us. And I was like, oh, shit. So I go back up to the roof and walk over to my buddy. And I'm like, hey, let me see that grenade guy, dude. And he's like, hands me the grenade. And I like pull the pin, throw it. And it's like, boom, goes off. And our guy watching the outside said, oh, direct hit. That was awesome. They're like, what the hell? So what ended up happening is I threw a grenade off the roof, and it landed on the corner of the building, and it landed in the pin pop, and these 5 guys come around the corner and didn't even know it was there, and it went off right when it was in between them. So
Winning.
Wow.
winning.
Winning.
Tiger
Taking
blood.
care.
Epic. And didn't everybody throw a grenade after that, Charlie?
Oh, yeah. Then everybody stood up and threw a grenade.
You started a trend, huh?
Yeah. Trending.
Yeah.
Trending.
Winning
So
and trending.
trendy.
Those grenades are scary. I never liked them. They have a lot of horsepower to them, don't they?
Well, not like in Hollywood, but they do the job.
It's not like a fireball chasing you all the way down to the end of the hallway. It just explodes right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you got to be close to get killed.
Speaking of Hollywood, you said Marcus's book.
Yes, Marcus Luttrell, the Lone Survivor guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's pretty famous still, but yeah, he's a good friend of mine, like a brother. So
When are they going to make the Charlie Melton movie?
I don't know. I think there's enough out there already, so we'll see. When I do something spectacular.
Well, we should probably do that tonight with Casey and some kind of hog on a pointy stick. That could happen. You never know.
They could.
Yep.
The sword, the Filipino battle axe.
I'm ready.
Yeah. We have the sword ready to go, Casey. Are you getting nervous about this?
I mean, it just throw me in there. I'll either fight or die. So just put me in the ring.
Fight or flight.
You ever encounter any other crazy type critters out like on the land side of things besides like fishes and dolphins and stuff like that?
Giant camel spiders.
Camel spiders, yeah, camel spiders were interesting when we were in Iraq. But yeah, those things get like it's like arachnophobia. It's like a spider the size of a small pig.
What?
I heard about
they get
those. Yeah.
huge.
Oh,
But
my
yeah,
goodness.
that was the scariest thing I ever saw because I don't like spiders anyway. They charge at you. If you got a fire going, they'll definitely come up. They eat cats.
What's it look like when they bite somebody?
I've never seen a bite from one, but I'm sure it's not pretty.
How do you kill that?
We would shoot them with our pistols, but
Lou's just glowing over here. He loves the stories, man.
I can't get enough of them. I could sit here all night and listen to you
I
guys.
had a daddy long legs come at me earlier today. I'm a little scared about that.
It's like, it's kind of like a daddy long leg, but with a dog-sized body in the middle of the legs.
Wow.
Oh, now that's an ankle biter right there.
More stuff to add to my nightmares. Holy smokes.
Crawling on your chest.
There's none of those in Texas, right?
No, if there is, we'd be hunting them.
Good old camel spiders, man. Everyone's got good camel spider stories too. Always a lot of people think that's a legend type deal, you know.
No, everybody always asks, "Is that true?" I'm like, "Oh, it's definitely true."
Yeah,
The scariest thing you ever seen if you don't like spiders.
it's like off that Alien movie,
Yeah, it's like off of what's that movie with the
spiders.
Arachnophobia is what you said.
no the one with Lost World or
Jurassic Park.
no what's the original one?
Oh, like the one from the 70s.
Yeah.
Oh, with the space people that go to that planet, the dinosaurs are there.
No, with Harrison Ford was the main character.
Oh, Star Wars.
Oh, no, you're talking about
Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yeah,
Oh, Indiana Jones.
Indiana Jones. There we go.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
Sorry.
Yep.
I had a little brain fart there, but yeah, Indiana Jones. It's like Indiana Jones movie.
It's crazy to actually hear these stories from the horse's mouth here. You know, a lot of this stuff, it sounds like Hollywood, and we picture it as Hollywood stuff, and it's always the glamour of the big screen. It's all special effects, but you actually lived it, Charlie.
Yeah, there's some crazy stuff out there in the world. It's insane.
I feel so sheltered. I really do. You hang out with badasses for just a little bit, and it's like, wow, my world's pretty small.
Maybe I'm not so special.
So it's
That's about
interesting after you hang out with some of these guys sometimes, like, what are the big differences for people who are curious, like what it's like to be inside that world, right? And they might see like the Hollywood version of that. What are some of the deals that guys like yourself don't appreciate about the Hollywood stereotypes versus the parts that are true? Or like, what's your observation on that deal?
Well, I'm a big movie guy, so I always enjoy a good movie, whether it's true or fake or whatever. But, you know, Hollywood always churches stuff up a little bit. But
They church it up a little bit?
A little bit. It's a little
Yeah.
churched up.
Yeah, you bet. They clean it up a little, yeah.
But no, I mean, being a team guy for 25 years, I got to travel everywhere in the world, everywhere in the U.S. It was a great experience. I mean, the stuff you see is just amazing. I mean, there's places you go in the world today, it's like going back in time. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah. You're talking about, was that Guam earlier, right?
Yeah, the Marshall Islands, like you fly and land on some of those islands out there. I mean, there's still guys wearing loincloths and carrying spears.
Yeah.
I mean, it's amazing. Africa, too. I mean,
No, I often wondered though, man, if that isn't like the actual, maybe the good life, because then you don't have to worry about like jobs and bills and taxes.
oh, yeah, it's funny. Those guys are the happiest people ever you meet. They're
Isn't
super,
that-
They're super happy living off the basics of life. I mean, it's kind of cool to see.
Absolutely. You know, and every time I've observed the Stone Age culture too, I just thought, man, I'm kind of jealous in some ways, but I don't know if I could handle it long term. You know, grass is always greener on the other side of the fence, but still, like you look at these old grandmas just like laying on the roofs, like midday in the sun, like, oh yeah, just chilling. Like, what's your job? Well, I have this house and I got to like cook this food that I grew in my yard, but that's about it, you know?
Nope.
Like they don't worry about bills and all that crap and like running for groceries and the scheduling and all that kind of stuff. So
Kind of all goes back to keep it simple.
yeah,
I was just going to say that, man. Keep it simple. And you get rid of all the extra crap, and you've got that much less to worry about. And you can readjust your priorities and focus on the things that actually matter in life.
Exactly.
So here's a couple of questions. Like, after all the different places the guy's seen, I'm sure, like, if you could pick a place, like, if you couldn't live where you're at now, let's say within the United States, and you had to be parachuted in wherever and just survive there and, like, disappear like Rambo style at some point, right?
Yep.
Where would that be?
Texas? No.
I got you.
No, I don't know.
Well, it is a whole other country,
outside the
okay,
US?
besides Texas.
No. I mean, like I said, I've been everywhere in the world, and I've enjoyed visiting places, but I've never found anywhere I'd prefer to live other than the U.S.
Right.
But yeah, there's some beautiful places. I enjoyed Spain, Austria, Germany, a lot of cool places in the world, but nothing like the good old U.S. of A.
So you wouldn't want to go and join the Guam people with the spears and stuff?
No, well, Guam guys don't have spears, but yeah. Guam was actually a good tour. I enjoyed it. Enjoyed myself over there a lot.
Right on. So, and now on the other opposite end of the spectrum, what is the place that you feel sorry for the most? The people, have the roughest deal. What's a rough neighborhood?
Bangladesh.
Bangladesh. Sure,
Yeah,
I got
that's
you.
probably the worst place I've ever been as far as like, it's just so crowded and so poor and dead animal and people floating in the river. Yeah, that's probably the worst place I've ever been.
Yeah.
Well, there's a couple places in Africa, but close. Yeah. There's definitely some places out there that are pretty poor and you wouldn't want to be there, live there.
Is that just the poor people, or in terms of conflict zones and stuff like that? What's the dynamic there? Because, I mean, a guy like you could probably handle a little bit of a conflict that might even be slightly entertaining at sometimes.
Yeah, I think mostly it's like anything, the poor places are the worst. People that have no money or no food or anything, I mean, that's the worst living conditions ever.
Yeah.
I mean, they don't have housing, food, or anything. There's people sleeping on the pier and on the sidewalks. Yeah, it basically comes out of poverty.
Yeah, it's interesting because and we talk about this on the podcast a lot. We talk about the field trip that we're going to sponsor people to go on. There's a lot of kids, nowadays that don't appreciate what it's like, maybe other places, and they complain about how bad America sucks and all this. And it's like, dude, all right, let's send you to like Mogadishu. Like, if you go down to the market and get a pack of bananas and make it back to the airplane and make it back, then I'll give you a blue ribbon. You know what I mean?
Ribbon.
Yeah, it's
I mean-
kind of like sending somebody to a third world country, and then you really learn to appreciate what you have. You know, if you've ever been to a third world country, it's an experience that people should probably at one point in their life experience, and they will be thankful for where they're from, especially US of A.
Yeah, if you don't like America, you need to get out and visit some other places.
Yeah, that's good advice. Now, on the podcast show here, we try to reach out to people and be a bridge to all different kinds of critters. Like Lou's his own person. Casey is totally different than both of us, and I'm kind of a unique animal as well. But there's a lot of people who subscribe and listen to it. Do you got any advice for folks on how to, reach out to some of these kids nowadays, or what do you think are some of the challenges with the current trajectory that the country's headed on, and what do you got any solutions for that? I'm sure you thought about that a lot because you've invested a lot in making sure that this place stays intact. So,
well, yeah, I don't know if I can say this on the air or whatever, but the problem with our kids these days is, number one, they don't get ass beatings, and number two, they're not held accountable for their actions.
Yeah, responsibility.
Right
Yep.
on, right on.
I hear you.
It's the snowflake culture that we've created.
It's a
That's
beautiful
right.
culture. Don't melt them, Lou. Don't melt them.
We are here.
Where's the tissues?
Hey, you heard the joke we had, right, Charlie? Did you hear the one Casey came up with a week or two ago?
No.
About the Melton snow?
Oh, I came up with a Charlie Melton joke.
Oh my goodness.
There we go. Might have to go on a t-shirt.
What was it? Okay, Lou was saying the
Yeah,
roads were bad. The roads were bad, and I was like, why are the roads bad? He said, because the snow is melting. And I was like Charlie Melton? They're dangerous because Charlie Melton? No. No, like it was
Aha, that was a good one.
There's a really good pun in there somewhere. We just don't know how to
We need a
get to
drum
it.
set.
We need a drum roll.
it was funny maybe at that moment.
You had to be there.
Had to be there.
But yeah, kids today, no accountability, no ass beatings. It comes down to parenting, doesn't it?
That's exactly what it comes down to. And unfortunately, there's not a lot of parents that stay together nowadays because, no one fulfills their commitments.
Yeah, that oath you take to uphold your honor and your promise to that other person and the big man up there. And people don't take that seriously anymore. That's the family unit. That's the thing that has gotten mankind to where we are today. And if we don't take seriously those most simple things, it's going to deteriorate from the inside out, and not in a pretty way either. And you can see it.
Well, and it's kind of like any other sacred ritual is what I'm going to call it. But anything else like that that's in the Bible or just something that we practice as people, it's supposed to be a reminder to you of the oath that you're taking. And it's supposed to kind of give you the tools for a good relationship. But people are making their marriages more about what wedding dress I should wear and what, it's a fashion thing or it's materialistic thing. So it's no longer a vow anymore. It's just saying some things to somebody and looking real nice.
Yeah, I
And
had a
feeding
young
some
lady
people.
tell me the smartest thing I've ever heard a couple months ago, but she's like, like a lot of women want to be brides, but they don't want to be wives.
And it's so true. And anymore, it's like a trend for women to not be good wives. Like the thing is, like they're talking about women, going out and working. And believe you me, I'm all about women empowerment and doing those things. But at the same time, you're a partner. And it's a partnership. And they feel like there's a huge amount of pressure on women to like degrade their boyfriends and degrade their husbands. And like they need to wear the pants and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, no, you should take care of each other. Whether you like cooking or he likes cooking or whatever, somebody does that and somebody does the other and you guys work together and it's,
Yeah, true empowerment is staying true to the long battle-tested total function of each part in the machine. Each part of the machine has its purpose, and it's a much stronger organism when it's that way. It's just like any unit, whether it's the Boy Scouts or the podcast or the military. Like if you just got one person independent from another person, if they don't get organized and come up with some symbiotic relationship, some way to complement each other, right? Like for every person pulling the trigger, there's 99 other guys helping that guy out, right? Yep. And so it's a much stronger machine that's better enhanced when it's properly oriented in that way. So that's true with just the social construct that, has sustained Western civilization. So it's funny how people are like rebelling against
Tradition.
just nature. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The tradition of how nature has preserved the human species and made us badass.
Well, and I think there's a negative connotation that people see when they think of a woman, and they think of being womanly as like a negative thing. So women are typically acting more and more like men, and they're trying to like do that. And I'm like, me over here, I think it's super important to be a woman. Just be a strong woman.
The
It's okay
feminism
to be a
movement
woman.
seems to be more oriented in turning chicks into dudes.
Yeah.
Which ain't feminine. That's kind of
No.
weird,
No, to be
And
a
vice versa, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
to be a feminist, you should be a woman who is strong.
Because women are sexy, right? And that's what propagates the species.
Well, that's
is,
what God intended, I think.
Well, yeah,
Well,
and
I
if
don't know.
and if women aren't sexy anymore, man, well, everybody's just going to be at home on Pornhub all the time.
Oh, they got those robots now. They got robot. You don't have to have a partner anymore because you can buy a robot and do it. I mean, that's all you got to
Dehumanizing
do.
people, yeah.
Yeah, but it's just not the same.
Oh, dear.
Once you have to stick your lover in the dishwasher when you're
Oh
done
my
with her,
god!
I have to stop you guys. It's out of
The cat's
control.
out of the bag.
We were evolving
Wheels
into
are coming off.
we're evolving into the morality part, and here we are degrading ourselves. Way to screw it up, Lou.
dude, we're just exploring all the options here, man.
Our options.
But it is the family unit. That's what keeps us together. That's what raises our children. That's what gets us from life to death and everything in between. Mm-hmm. And if we take all those building blocks away, whether it's through social media or the media in general.
Well, that's the culprit, man. I think the
Exactly,
media is
dude.
like an enemy of humanity because they're specifically engineering a counterculture which is like not enhancing the human species but handicapping them. That's the only explanation I can find out is you can take down Western civilization either with trying to fight them like physically, which is kind of hard to do because there's a lot of guys who are pretty good at fighting, and in Western civilization is kind of our thing. That's like what we're really good at. That's why we have such enhanced technology and all this stuff. But they're sneakier, and so with prosperity, they try the old trick that took down the Romans, right? And they just degrade and poison the culture and get people so wealthy and so spoiled and so soft and so screwed up and so twisted that they eventually self-destruct. And they make it a worship show of oneself all the time, and people don't think of the greater social organism, and they just think of themselves independently, the selfishness. And then the whole thing goes to hell in a handbasket real quick.
Just give them bread and circus, right?
Yeah, and it's all in a history book. It happens a million times in a row. So it's one of them deals. It's like it's not a mystery what's going to happen if we continue on the path. So the real war is really for people's hearts and minds to wake the hell up and just like get back to old school Americana values.
And do what Mr. Melton said and be responsible for your decisions, guys. And be accountable.
Yeah, and it goes back to what you're saying. Why are the kids all messed up? Well, it's not the kids' fault. It's the parents. Parents aren't staying together, and men are trying to be women, and women are trying to be men. I mean, like I said, go back to traditional family, traditional parenting, and yeah, that's what's wrong with kids.
One thing you see, it seems like parents are setting up kids almost for failure, but it's not their own fault. It's, whenever you're raised, you want your kids to have what you didn't have. Yep. Well, it seems that each generation that's built even more and more and more, especially ever since the Great Depression. And it seems to, you're giving your kids essentially everything to where they've learned not to earn anything.
They got nothing to work for then.
Nothing to work for. So there's a sort of moral values that, are not developed.
And too much prosperity can be a bad thing if not
Yes.
utilized or harnessed for good, because there's people who have a lot too who end up to be way successful then, but that's hard. It's a lot of horsepower to harness. You know what I mean? It's a tricky one.
Yeah, and it seems, that society is strayed away from failure. The biggest thing you get from failure, you learn success through failure.
Yeah.
And it seems like most people now, it's like they don't want to fail ever, but that's how you gain.
Well, and we were talking about that the last time you were on the podcast. We expounded on that. The value of failing is actually solid gold, whereas winning is like good because you got there, but the value really for building a skill set is to do it wrong. and learn from it though. See, it's like, okay, I screwed it up. What did I do? Now you're continuously growing and you're continuously refining, and you're learning not to quit. You're getting stronger, right? So if you're pushing on a weight that you can't quite lift, you're getting really strong by doing that. If you just do something that's 5 pounds all day, then how are you going to ever grow or get stronger? So, or missing a rifle target, right? You shoot at it and then you got to slow down and think, okay, what did I do that was not exactly correct? And then you learn from that deal. Or you don't learn from it. And, there's different ways of doing that too. But every opportunity is always there to learn from something. So it's our choice whether that a failure is a failure and we can have a pity party on the deal, or a failure can be the most kick-ass thing that ever happened in your life. You guys know what I'm saying. Like, failure can be really, really valuable. And I think that if people just think about stuff in a more constructive way, those are all perfect opportunities for kids to actually fail and understand the value of correction and adjusting fire. Like when you miss, you don't just sit there and cry. You got to say, okay, 3 mils left, 1 mil up, and then you adjust fire, and then and hopefully you do it before the wind changes, right? And then there's a million parables in life that support that.
And with that, it's also the culture that we've created of giving our kids everything, generation after generation. And then because we give them everything, we expect perfection from them. We don't allow them any margin of error, any room to fail, because everybody's got to be perfect. If you do fail, there's no consequences. There's no mechanisms of correction because parents don't hand out ass beatings anymore.
Could you imagine how good of a shooter you'd be if every time you missed a target, there was someone behind you that made you feel special by dinging on a piece of steel with a hammer and saying, "Oh no, you didn't miss. You hit it. Good job.
You get a participation award."
You're so good. Like, dude, you'd suck.
Yep. Yeah. And
I miss all the time, man. It happens. I missed today like 4 times in a row or whatever it was.
Yeah, exactly. And you can tie that back into principles. Like when you're shooting, you got your 5, 7, whatever principles of marksmanship you're using. So yeah, if you're not hitting the target, then you go back and go through your principles and figure out what you're doing wrong. Well, that's the problem with kids nowadays. They don't have those principles to go back on and figure out what they're doing wrong.
That's one of the cool things about the discipline of long-range shooting. We talked about this earlier. Is it's a good example. It's emblematic of life. Because like in order to master something that's dynamic and complex like long-range shooting, you have to really break it down into those fundamental points. And there's so many different like metaphors and parables mixed into long-range shooting that can be directly applied to life. Discipline, tenacity, patience, like attention to detail. All those things come into play with doing this or whatever else you're doing. But it's a neat thing to take advantage of whatever you're doing and apply it to the greater things in life too, and use it as that's actually a good sport for kids to get into, is shooting. Not only does it preserve the liberty of the country eventually when they grow up and kick ass at it, right? They can put food on the table. They can keep themselves entertained and off the streets and out of trouble. But it's like teaching them discipline, because you can't hit the target without a huge amount of discipline at a certain distance. Like you can't just, I'm just going to do 3 of the fundamentals right now. Boom. It's not going to work. You're going to miss.
Dude, just 3.
Or you're not going to hit consistently.
It's half-ass it.
Yeah. Sometimes you might hit it, but it ain't going to be consistent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just like, in our, growing up, we talked about it like on our last podcast on, the shooting sports. That's like the best thing that a kid can do at a young age because of the discipline that is required. I don't know if you have anything to touch on that, Jones, with your experience as well.
Absolutely. I think, one thing, it sharpens skills, but not only that, it teaches good gun safety. And, that's very important with kids. A lot of things, kids are curious, right? And so if you introduce them to things that are, a firearm is dangerous, don't get me wrong, but if you get them acquainted with it, you take that curiosity factor out of it to where they will make a mistake, it can, essentially save lives. So, one thing I wanted to say from our one topic earlier is basically having, one shot you can apply with target shooting and in life. So just think of it this way. So if I'm going for a job interview, you got one shot to make this happen. So you definitely want to perfect this. So a good practice to make you see all the variables, atmospheric conditions, what your rifle is doing, is essentially going to a range and bringing 1 round. That is it. Pick a range, pick a target, whatever that target is, it makes you focus on exactly what you need to do instead of having a box of shells and just emptying a magazine until you get a hit.
Having 20 alibis.
Yes. you have one shot. That's one shot, one kill. It really makes you focus.
I was talking to one of the guys that actually competed with Carlos Hathcock. He was in the 5th Special Forces Group, I think, in Nam. He was up in my area putting on one of the shooting competitions up there, and he's pretty old now. And they were always like kind of neck and neck. He said that that's how Carlos would train people. They're like, Carlos, because he was a good competition shooter before he got involved in the combat side of it. He's really, really good at like the 1,000-yard game. And so when he would take a dude out to shoot with him, he would hand him one single round, exactly like you said. And he's like, okay, here's your task for the week. This goes exactly where you want it to go. And they look at him like, and they start walking away. And they're like, what the hell's that about? He's like, no, I want you to pay attention to every detail. I want you to lay here, get everything exactly perfect. You can dry fire as much as you want, but this round goes where it goes. If a moth flies in front of that muzzle and farts, you better log that because that could change something. So every single detail, you need to understand exactly what's going on with this. And then you've invested a lot of time and stuff to thinking about it, and then it makes you invest more of your discipline into that. And it's an interesting point of view that I think is an excellent way to train on things.
Absolutely. I mean, in the end, most people that are, sharpening their skills for long range shooting, you want to apply that, of course, to hunting. And of course, game is not going to let you sit there and shoot at it multiple times. So if you develop that focus, on the range with that one shot, doing those cold bore shots while you're hunting will definitely improve your skills. Yep.
Absolutely. I remember back when I was up in the Rocky Mountains a bunch and I do a lot of shooting with the 338, I'd drag all my crap up on top of the mountain, and you have to get up in your firing position and just screw around, and you drag like 90 pounds of stuff up there, and I would just have that one round. That's actually what I used to do, and then that was like the project, you know what I mean? And then if you missed, you're kind of pissed. You had to walk all the way back to the car to get to the second one, And it's not like I always hit either, you know what I mean? So you start walking up and down hills a lot, but no, that's a really good way of thinking about things is make that one deal count because you might only have one shot. So another thing too with the differences between the sports shooting world and real life shooting is in real life you might only have that one round. In fact, that's a lot of times only chance you have. That level of discipline might be required. And depending on exactly what you're doing, there might be a huge amount of stuff riding on it.
We are on that one shot though, guys. All of us. We got one life to live and we are smack dab in the middle of it. Right here in this room together in Texas, and
you just gave me a stomach ache, Lou. Thanks a lot.
Oh man, it's true though, guys. We get one shot at life. You don't want to mess it up. So discipline and don't be afraid to fail, I think, are the two morals of the story here.
Yes,
and spank your kids
and spank them.
Come up with some principles.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Come up with a set of principles, and then. And that's another interesting conversation, too, is that the various different independent techniques that you use to achieve those principles might vary a little bit, but the principles are like the 10 Commandments. They're always the same.
It's your foundation.
Absolutely. It's your foundation. And there might be different styles of applying those principles. Like, there's different techniques, like we talked about grip. There's different preferences exactly of how that works. If you're true to the heart of the principle, I think that that's the main objective. And there's, it depends on exactly what you're doing in life, too.
It's a beautiful metaphor we're painting here, guys.
Yeah.
It's got levels.
Many levels.
Like layers, like an onion, just peeling them.
That was a good discussion there, guys. The melding of the minds coming together here. And I think we're actually coming up with some answers for life and the big questions here. And if you stick around, we're going to split the atom a little bit more after a quick break.
You really thought you'd get away with it, big guy?
You got it. Alpha 9 or Tango 1-3, this is Pirate Thunder King.
Indexing hasty solution for 7.
What in the hell are you holding?
It's not sure.
It's an MP49. That's a saw.
Target's got good cover. What's our danger space for a headshot at TRP-5?
Hi, Mom. It's me and my pals. Say hi, guys.
Yeah, dude. Oh, man.
You're shorter than I expected.
These are super.